Good evening, honorable judges. Team Gallade welcomes you to the second round presentation of Brandwitz 2015.
So we will focus on the situation analysis, actually what is happening today in this case. First is the migrant workers. There are actually around 10.6 million migrant workers in more than 150 countries worldwide, and they contribute to 10 to 13% of our GDP, which is more than 15 billion US dollars. And the next thing is, why these migrant workers actually go abroad for a better opportunity and for a better life. But current scenarios, when they actually hear any rumors or when they actually see some kind of feasible opportunities, they sell their family heirlooms, they sell their family fortunes, they spend all their savings in order to go abroad. But are they getting the fruits? No, they aren't. Because they are being the victim of harsh reality abroad. Why they are being the victims? Because they did not get the proper training before going there. Some of them even don't know what they're supposed to do when they actually reach abroad. And that's why our overseas employment is reducing, and the remittance, the growth rate of the remittance sometimes gets lower. Problem identification. Our first problem that we have identified is the asymmetric information, which is the imbalance of information flow from the information holder to the information receiver. In this case, the information holder is the government and various agencies, and the information receiver are the migrant workers who are actually going abroad. They are not actually informed about the pre-departure process and about the trainings that the government and various organizations like the BRAC migration programs are providing. And so actually, main core problems are the absence of safe migration information at their doorsteps, and lack of knowledge about pre-departure procedure, and they don't even know what they're supposed to do, which is the lack of knowledge about the job description. So moving on. And also it's the absence of cultural adaptiveness. They are not given the minimum proficiency or minimum language training of that foreign country in which they are about to go. So, and this problem which we have identified is their problems. The problems of migrant workers are basically a national concern, but we, the general mass, aren't that appealed or aren't that attracted by these problems. The stakeholder analysis. So our stakeholders are the migrant workers themselves, the society in which they live. In the society, the rural government, the local government, the CBOs, the community-based organizations, then the government, then various agencies, and we, the general mass, and also the NRBs, the non-residents of Bangladesh, who have permanent residence abroad. So our primary stakeholders are the migrant workers themselves, their families, the society, and the government. And the secondary stakeholders are agencies and the general mass. Which type of agencies are these? These are BIRA, ILO, IOM, NGOs like BRAC, and IOM is the International Organization for Migration. And the key stakeholder is the government, the local government parts of the government, the local government representatives, the Ministry of Expatriate Welfare and Overseas Employment, and Bureau of Migration, Employment and Training.
Now that we have known who are our stakeholders and the problems that we have identified, let's go to the solution. How do we actually tackle the scenario and the problems? And that is through project Shushto Porichon. This project contains 2 campaigns focused to different TGs. Number 1 campaign will be directed towards the potential migrant workers, carrying the message of Totho Jene training here, Thakbo Bidesh Giye.
So the target group for campaign 1 is the potential migrant workers, and also the migrant workers who are already working abroad, and most of the migrant workers are living in rural areas. Moving on.
So the first agenda of this campaign is to eradicate the asymmetric information that we have mentioned earlier, and to raise the awareness of the potential migrant workers that they need the skill and they need to be trained.
And finally, awareing the private group that there is a digitalized approach, and informing the private group that there is a convenience system existing in the government.
So these are the strategies of this particular campaign that we're doing with Panchayat, Gunjal Procha, that is the buzz marketing, rural activation, celebrity endorsement, internal portal, and TBC. So the panchayat addresses the more acute problem of the rural society. So for example, if you give a jatra or a drama, that is not really effective medium to tackle an acute problem as such as this. So panchayat is led by the village head who has a position and everyone listens to him. The government would affiliate with that individual and let the message know.
And Udhan Product is firstly initiated by the family members of Bangladesh, and in where the people at the authorities address to the women living in who could not go to the panchayat, and it consisted in small localities. And moving on.
So Gunjan Puchar is the buzz marketing. How would do buzz marketing? Firstly, the village school headmaster, they would meet. It will be a great medium. The Imam and Khutbah of Jummah, tea stalls, and Haq Bazaar is a great hub where they discuss these issues, and the whole world. And so these two are personalities are habituated carrying on the government messages frequently. Abdul Qudus Boyati, through his songs, he is most an icon to the rural people. Who he is mostly known to carry government messages to the rural people. And Mumtaz, being herself a government worker head, so she gets to know the message what is there. So this is the rural activation procedure. They need to get their passport issued. So when they go to the Totho Kendra Shepa, which A2I has established last year, so there we would activate our message, and then they would be aware about our campaign message. Moving on. And these are
basically internet portal is a website where migrant workers and potential migrant workers will see every bit of information, and the existing migrant workers living abroad will have a feedback system where they can complain about stuff and what they do not know and do know, and further they will have an online training system where they can know stuff. Moving on. And now the audiovisual. Another time frame for the first campaign. The first campaign will conduct for 6 months, and the second phase is actually when the government implements any G2G and other migration process. The first campaign will conduct for at least for 3 months. That will be the second phase, and the continuous processes are on-site, Udhan Product that we mentioned, role activation, celebrity endorsement, and internet portals. So moving on.
This is the actual impact of the campaign, the first campaign, that is what is going to learn the significance of being skilled and being trained, and thus about the government involvement that they are addressing this issue. And third one is the TG is ensured with the digitalized system of the portals that he has mentioned before, and then the dependency on the middleman is getting eradicated. This is one of the main impacts of the campaign. And it's the second campaign, so whatever happens, whenever problem arises, everyone blames the government. But through this campaign, the second campaign, we're going to make it a national matter, that people should be involved. That is, অবদান রাখে প্রবাসী কর্মী, চলুন তাদের পাশে থাকি।
Alright, so as mentioned before, the campaign 2 is basically to raise awareness among the general people and the general mass, so that they know what is the current situation of the migrant workers, how helpless they are, and how they're in need of some proper guidelines. According to our campaign agenda, it's going to be divided into 4 main sectors. Number 1, as mentioned before, it's going to raise awareness about the inconvenience of the migrant workers among the general people and the general mass in rural areas, semi-urban areas, and urban areas. And we need to let the general mass know that they should be concerned for these migrant workers, because their remittance adds a great deal of interest to our nation, their remittance adds great value to our national economy. And this also lets the people know that the government is actually concerned about the current situation. They are doing something to improve the situation. And the last but not least, as the government promised that Bangladesh is moving towards a digital Bangladesh, this also brings the entire Bangladesh. Moving on, our campaign strategy is to basically send out these messages through three main sectors. Number one, SMS marketing. Number two, TV shows, and number three, TVCs. SMS marketing. Now, as we said before, that we are going to let the general mass know. General mass, as in people like us, and as we all know that we are always very much obsessed with social networking sites. So we believe that that is a very strong method that we can convey the message to Facebook, Google, Pinterest, and the like. And we're also going to make a promotion so that people can see, they can understand what's actually going on, and we're going to raise a viral line using hashtags and more. Now, the TV show is going to be something as such. It's going to be similar to Krishi Budget, which is usually aired in Channel I. It is going to be a TV show as such that there are going to be consultants there, and there are going to be people in the rural areas or semi-urban areas who are willing to go abroad, who have questions, who have queries, and who have problems. They'll be able to come watch this show, which is going to be an open-air show. It's going to be all about the migration process, and the consultants will be able to tell them more about their problems. The audio-visual about this part, we are going to hire a professional advertising agency where they're going to showcase the real-life problems and the real-life situations that the migrants tackle so that they are aware, the general mass is aware of what's going on. The time frame. It is going to be divided into three sectors. The first phase is going to be activated from the beginning of next year, which is 2016, since this year is already coming to an end. It's going to be starting from January, it's going to go on till June. Basically, we're going to air our TVCs and TV shows from Jan to June. And in our second phase, which is going to be the end of 2016, where the other governments across the entire world are going to contact Bangladesh and other countries as such for skilled for workers and migrants. That is when we are going to again start airing the TVCs and TV shows 3 months before the ending of the next year, and the SMS marketing is going to be a continuing process. Moving on, the impacts of the campaign are going to be as such. The image of the government is going to be strengthened among the eyes of the nation. The national problem will be brought about into a more systematic category and into a better system. And number three, the gathering of the migrants and the people who are trying to help them will add to the community values. And the advertisements are going to be as such that the TVCs are going to be played 15 times a week for 6 months in the following channels. The billboards are going to be practically placed in 20 locations, and the newspaper ads are going to be placed for 3 days a week in the back pages.
The current situation of our country is the government doesn't have any idle funds. To make our project more detailed, more feasible, we have actually budgeted the cost, the total cost of the first phase, which is around 4 crores. So we are basically independent advisors. The government, we are independent counselors. The government has hired us not only to just showcase the campaigns, but also to advise them if there are any loopholes or if the current structure can be improved. So here are our advisors. The government should patronize the CBO, which is the community-based organizations. Currently in our country, there are 500 upajelas. And in these 500 upajelas, the BRAC migration programs and the other NGOs have already tapped the 124 upajelas. So if the government patronizes them, they don't need to go on these 122 upajelas. They can focus on the rest of the 380 upajelas. The declaration of the migration as a third sector, because the total remittance actually accumulates the 10 to 30% of our GDP. If the government declares this as a third sector, the government can then employ or reduce the money from the remittance every year, at least 1.3 to 1.5% for development of this structure. Then the redesigning the EOWP with at least 5 separate departments. These 5 separate departments will facilitate all the information. The first department will be the recruitment department, the second department will be the training department, the third department will be the migrant workers' rights department, which will oversee if the rights of the migrant workers are being violated overseas. The fourth department is the rehabilitation procedure. After they come back home, the government should also use some structure or some plans to rehabilitate them. And the fifth department would be the research of the migrant worker policies and other issues. And the more interministerial and interagency coordination basically is also the same as the CBOs. The government should create more partnership with the IOM the UNHCR, the UN Women, etc.
Sorry, what's EWOE?
EWOE is the Ministry of Expatriates, Welfare and Overseas Employment.
Aim. There should be an aim. Ministry of Expert Welfare, there should be an aim. We have shown it in the ISS. So can we have the 1 minute? Before we would like to mention that we have, whatever have we done is we mentioned who are the stakeholders, identified the problems, and through our project Shushto Porijan, we have given 2 focused campaigns that could solve the 2 major core problems and given the budget. And as the consultants, we have given our recommendations. With that, we'd like to end. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for presenting in front of us today. I guess let me start with the questioning. And what I really liked about your presentation from the start is you have done quite a lot of thinking around the stakeholders, and then trying to figure out a way around kind of how to approach some of them. And then there's quite a lot of thinking around the problem identification. Where I kind of lost track was when it came to campaigns. Rather than trying to map your stakeholders to certain campaigns or establishing some sort of link, it was kind of blocked. And I think you've done quite a lot of good work, Krishi budget and innovative kind of channels and everything. But I have the hunch that the campaign that you're proposing is only going to solve part of the problem. What's your view?
So sorry, the question.
So let
me repeat. So the campaign that you have planned, this is much more generic, but you have done some fantastic work around identification of the problem and stakeholder plan mapping and all of that. But what's missing is that clear link between your stakeholder groups, what really will motivate them, and what are the key messages you want to take there versus what you're proposing as part of the campaign.
So we couldn't go there because it was stated in the case that we don't have the current idle funds and the current assets should not be changed as we should do. And that's why we went to the general approach.
So may I add to that?
So may I? So basically we had 5 stakeholders. The first stakeholders are the government and the society. The migrant workers, the society and the government. Our first campaign, which is to inform the migrant workers that there are various agencies and there are departments of government and various ministries which are actually providing training facilities and which have actually digitalized the system. So if we can actually pull that off, which is our first campaign, we can address the society and the migrant workers. And the agencies and the government, we have addressed these issues in our recommendations part. The government should incorporate itself with various international and national agencies and NGOs. And the general mass is actually whenever there is a problem, whenever a problem arises.
Sorry to interject. I understand that. I guess where I was heading is the sort of focus that you've given to the migrant worker, the society. As you have suggested, you have kind of said the government needs to work with the agency. Think about it. You're presenting to the government, and then if that is the recommendation, the only piece of recommendation you give them is you need to work with the agency guys, then what would be my response?
Probably give them a bit angry, but there are also like...
and the money comes from my pocket, right?
Yes, sir. The money comes from your pocket. But we have given these 2 recommendations, which is the government can declare it as a first sector. In that case, the remittance, which is not every year, the government can re-employ at least 1.3 to 1.5% of that in this sector to redesign it, to improve it. If they go beyond 2.5%, then the whole budgeting procedure, the whole budget of a fiscal year, they may have to change it. But if they remain below 1.5 or 1.3%, it won't be such a big problem. And we have also stated the Ministry of Expatriates Welfare. Actually, they have 2 the 5 departments that I have mentioned, they have to exist in, which is the recruitment department and the training department. But I have also, we will also advise the government to get 3 more departments. The migrant workers rights department. This department will oversee that in abroad, if any right is violated, or as we mentioned in the portal.
And do you think training departments are going to solve this issue? More departments?
I think there's one step towards solving that issue, but probably it won't. We have to wait and we have to phase out the whole procedure as well.
So adding to that, in the part where you said we got a blurred in the campaigns are actually focused to 2 different target groups. One, because the potential migrant workers, and the second one is the general mass. And we have launched our campaign strategy according to the targets. How can we reach that specific target group? So sorry for being so blurred.
That's okay. Speaking of target groups, I'm really worried because you've actually thought of a website solution. You've also thought about social media communication.
Yes, sir.
And I'm really surprised as to why you've gone on to this length as to focus some of your budget, at least some of your budget, on the social media promotion. You usually think that this kind of this thriving youth, where we're talking about here in particular, they are really omnipresent on this kind of platforms, on using websites and registering themselves, or rather you focus on ground activations, rural activations, which you have mentioned, and you rather want to have one-to-one and word of mouth, offline word of mouth communication, so that people actually absorb the information that you want or the awareness that you want to create.
Actually, sir, the target market or the target segment of the SNS marketing is the general people. And why we have targeted the general people? Because if any problem arises, we just blame it on the government. The actual, feasible, and more practical way to solve any problem is to get the general mass involved here. If we can reach the young people through SNS marketing and through the TV shows and through viral vibes, that these migrant workers are actually contributing a lot to our economy, to your economy. But
I'm okay with the SMS broadcast. That's fine, because we have a decent amount of mobile penetration out there, and there are this sort of audience, this ACC C or D, they are using mobile.
Yes.
But as far as the internet is concerned, the internet penetration of this country is still a long way to go. And we're talking about social media, even a percentage of that. So again, that's a long way to go. You can bring in awareness, mass awareness, that this sort of things are happening and we should be careful, but it will not reach your particular segment who actually travels and sacrifices a lot to face these kind of situations, what we're talking about. So do you really think that you should budget some amount into your promotion for this online arena? I think you should rather go more into offline. That's the promotional part of it.
actually, sir, around the 5 crores, we have actually exhausted 11 or 12 lakhs in the creation of the portal. So it's not a big percentage. And why we have created the portal? Because last year, in 2014, Etohan has launched the Union Tottho Seva Kendra. These centers are already existing in our country. What we are going to do is, we are going to communicate the message to the people, the migrant workers, who are actually going to go abroad, that these Union Tottho Seva Kendra are actually there. You can go there, you can fill up you can complete the whole registration process, and you can also gain knowledge about in which country you are about to go, about the working conditions there, the past statistics, etc.
It could be a small percentage, but I still think it might be.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Going back on your total budget of 4 crore, I think. Yeah.
Around
That's quite a lot. And have you made any kind of budgeting as to how you do your TVC airings across media? Which TVCs and also for newspapers?
Last previous. Yes. So actually there are 2 TVCs. 32nd, we have actually made a demo of the first TVC, and the second TVC will be made by a professional ad firm. So the both TVCs will be of 37 equal.
Which newspapers and channels?
So
BTV channel and channel. Why would you? I mean, I don't know if I'm not so sure. BTV is the only channel that actually, is nationwide, and you can only reach through all the. You sort of an earlier slide in the beginning of the presentation where the workers you're talking about is spread over all the country, all the segments or districts of the country. So I think we should rather focus on BTP only instead of Channel 9 and in Bangla.
And on that,
And the same goes for newspaper as well. Would you go for regional newspapers or?
So actually we have gone for the Kothama as the whole countrywide newspaper, and we'll target some regional newspaper like 2 newspapers per district. That's our plan. And why we have targeted HN, why we have choose Channel and HN Bangla? Because the second target segment of our campaign, the second campaign, which is the general mass, but it's not actually only the citizens of our country, it's also the NRBs, the non-residents of Bangladesh. If we can target them and if we can connect them, link them emotionally that these workers are coming to our country, they are facing some difficulties, so you should come forward and you should help them.
Then why haven't you thought of the operators that are working, that are actually operating in Malaysia, for example, or Middle East, about sending text messages to those as well? Because in Malaysia, for example, some of the operators, they actually target Bangla speaking, for example, Bangladeshis who have registered themselves and sent different international roaming offers or other offers as well. So you might as well think of that channel for additional incremental reach of your audience.
Actually, we kind of thought of that, but it just went over our heads because we didn't go deep into that.
Alright, so Shushto Purijan. First of all, quite a few interesting ideas like Krishi budgets and all that. But my basic question is, what exactly are you going to do? What is the end game? Say after 2 years from now, become the government and now maybe why. So what exactly are you going to achieve?
So actually we are willing to achieve our
campaign is
make the people, the migrant workers, like step by step, gradually, we're going to make them aware that these facilities are here by provided by government and provided by other agencies, and they need to get preparations before going abroad. They need to calculate their losses and their gains. That even if they sell some of their lands or properties, will it actually yield them some benefits? And they need to be aware that the mediums, it may not be the government G2G program all the time. It may be a private agency or a private agent. So they need to check or they need to recheck the mediums whether it is actually legal, whether they are actually practical in our country. So that is all.
Do you think just creating mass awareness will solve the issue of smart migration?
So actually it's one step forward to solving the issue of smart migration, because the government has already taken an initiative via the HOI. They are digitalizing the whole process, but the thing is the general mass are aware of it. They don't know that. So we are basically communicating
initial stage. Awareness is basically an initial stage. Later we'll do a long-term process, long-term strategies.
Okay. So do you have any data, as in primary research or secondary research, to prove your fact? You're saying the awareness level is very low.
We had data, but we didn't include it in the slides.
It's okay. You can share it if you have done any research.
Or 5 more. 5 more.
So there was a study with the IOM that they are
International Organization of Migration.
So they are actually conducting with the help of the government, the ILO, and the UNHCR and the UN Women. So they have tapped 25 or 24% of the whole country. They have made them aware of that, but still there is 76% unaware.
And so we also looked into the Malaysian migrant workers and how they act. What is the system of how they send the migrant workers? And it was a really nice G2G process. It is already updated, but the problem is people are not aware of it. They are not involved with this. Government is doing something, and it is taking a nice step. It is there. We didn't know before this case was given to us. After we got into this thing, the government is taking really nice steps.
Let me share some data. At this point of time, around 1.4 million people are willing to go to Malaysia at this point of time. But government is allowing 10,000.
But totally paid.
Yeah, only 10,000 where government is allowing. What will happen to 1.4 million minus 10,000? They will, try out the adventurous approach like we did in the newspaper, and we will feel good about it. Do you think creating just awareness would solve this issue? Again, I'm getting back to the same question to understand.
I get the one. This is a basic start, sir. Just start. Then later we'll go into the deeper and like the long-term strategy, sir, that solidifies the.
Sir, we have given 4 recommendations, but we need an implementation plan because it's up to the government to implement it. If it
Merely
wants our advice, we'll give it to them. But according to the case, the main problem was to make the people aware and create a structure for the smart migration process.
Excellent presentation. I am very much convinced of the presentation, but I am unsure why you choose the name Shushtu Purijan. The people migrants are very literate. Why it's a very difficult name, Shushtu Purijan? Does it mean anything to these people who doesn't know anything? Sir, I think it's tough for me to understand. So why there was a village or something? Because you have to understand that there are people who only class 1, 2 or 3 or something don't have. So Shushtu Purijan is a very difficult name. Try to campaign based on the name. So try to give a name which is very easy. I think this is one of your main problems I find. Another thing I have to ask you, what do you think? What is the main problem in our migration sector? For smart migration sector, what is the number one problem you think? Is only awareness or is not the opportunity of employment or getting less salary? Which one is the main problem you think? Asymmetric information.
The lack of preparation on part of the migrant workers.
They are not skilled enough. They are not learning the significance of being skilled. Then if I ask you, when the Malaysian captain started, whole country they are coming to the UICC, they registered, 1.4 million people registered, but they didn't get visa. So they were, they know the whole process, everything was there, total things, but they didn't get job. So only awareness is the main problem, you think? Initially not, sir. You're on point on that. And sir, on the topic of the name, sir, before fixing that name, I fixed that name. I thought, Purijan is a really far away word. No one would really relate to it. But so we are not actually throwing out this word that much. It is for our reference. Shushtu Purijan is for our project. Shushtu Purijan. What we are projecting is the brand messages. Obozanra ki probashi kormi cholun tader pashe thaki and
what we have shown in our cases.
And sir, A2, for example. The project A2I, it's not familiar with the rural people too, because they are not that much educated. A2I, but they gave it. They don't need it. But they need, when you go to the Uthan Botagar Panchayat, you have to sign about Shushtu Purijan. You don't understand anything about Shushtu Purijan. You are going to the Panchayat or Uthan Botagar. A2I is not going to them. You are going.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.